WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Visit Bloomington. With over 350 restaurants to choose from, Bloomington, Indiana is truly a food lover's paradise. Go to visitbloomington.com to discover what suits your taste.
This is WFYI News Now. It's February 8th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, parents demand IPS leaders develop a plan to help Black and brown students. A bill at the State House could help people access the state's disaster relief fund. A controversial state program that involves what's being taught in schools. And state lawmakers are fighting to ensure Hoosier kids can operate their own lemonade stands.
They learn about identifying investors, procuring products, ensuring stable supply chains, developing marketing plans, identifying customers, handling point-of-sale processes, dealing with competition from up the street.
Those stories coming up. But first, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley has received enough signatures to appear on the Indiana primary ballot, according to a preliminary report from the Indiana Election Division. As Ben Thorpe reports, that's despite allegations from President Donald Trump that Haley didn't have enough signatures and missed the state filing deadline.
In order to appear on Indiana's primary ballot, candidates must receive 500 signatures from voters in each of Indiana's 9 congressional districts. An Indiana Election Division report shows Haley has received at least 500 signatures in each congressional district, but received exactly 500 in the district that includes Marion County. Marion County Clerk Kate Sweeney Bell says that number means Haley could see her signatures challenged.
What voter registration has to do is make sure that the people who signed it all live in that district and are registered to vote in that district.
Even if Haley sees some of her signatures thrown out, the Election Commission would ultimately vote on whether she can appear on the primary ballot. The filing deadline to appear on the ballot is this Friday. I'm Ben Thorpe.
A few dozen parents yesterday demanded the leaders of Indianapolis Public Schools develop a plan to improve academics for Black and brown students. From WFYI's Education Desk, Eric Weddle reports families issued a deadline.
For years, families and advocacy groups have called on IPS to address its persistent academic achievement gap between Black and brown students and their white classmates. That includes scores on state tests and graduation rates. Gregory Henson is one of the parents who delivered a petition to school board members.
We are asking you to call on the IPS administration to have a detailed plan in place by June to grow public schools that are working.
Advocates want district leaders to map out how they'll partner and grow local charter schools with high outcomes for non-white students. If that fails to happen, parents warned they will not support a future IPS property tax referendum. A year ago, the district shelved a referendum after pushback from families and charter schools. I'm Eric Weddle.
Hoosiers in need after a disaster would be able to access more money more easily from the state's disaster relief fund under legislation headed to the House. Senator Cindy Carrasco's bill would provide up to $25,000, increased from $10,000 for individuals with lost or damaged property due to a disaster. It also eliminates a requirement that to be eligible for the funds, the U.S. Small Business Administration must first declare a disaster.
It is important to remember that the State Disaster Relief Fund is only available when federal assistance is not available.
Carrasco's bill also allows counties to get more money after a disaster if they've done disaster mitigation work beforehand. That includes adopting a hazard mitigation plan and performing emergency management exercises.
Studies show that for every $1 spent on a mitigation activity, $6 to $7 are saved in recovery costs.
Indiana's Disaster Relief Fund is funded by a fee on the sale of fireworks. And the Holcomb administration says it collects enough to cover the expanded relief under the legislation, which is a priority of the governor's. And a controversial state program is allowing anyone to submit to a public online site examples of race, gender, and political ideology being taught in schools throughout the state. Violet Cumber-Weiland reports some school corporations and districts are already expressing concerns with the documents on the portal.
The Eyes on Education platform allows all Hoosiers to view submitted photos, screenshots, and presentation materials from districts and universities across the state that the office describes as potentially inappropriate. In a statement, the Office of the Attorney General says it will investigate materials and complaints submitted to the portal. Several school districts with materials featured on the portal have since released statements calling the information outdated and incorrect. Other districts, including Noblesville Schools, say they were not aware of the site or the documents on it prior to its release. Some districts have also expressed concerns about how this type of information may affect teaching environments and may cause teachers to feel less supported. The Indiana State Teachers Association said in a statement this portal will create division between parents and educators and would target public schools. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Violet Kumber-Weiland.
And for our final story today, Indiana lawmakers are making sure local governments and homeowner associations can't stop children from operating lemonade stands. Brandon Smith reports on the unanimous House passage of what its author calls the feel-good bill of the 2024 session.
Technically, Indiana law doesn't allow a child to operate a lemonade stand without a permit, which would subject them to a host of regulations and costs. Democratic Representative Blake Johnson says his bill protects many kids' first experience with business.
They learn about identifying investors, procuring products, ensuring stable supply chains, developing marketing plans, identifying customers, handling point-of-sale processes, dealing with competition from up the street, and whether or not to spend their cold hard cash or reinvest it in the business.
Johnson's bill ensures no local government agency or homeowner association can prohibit or regulate a stand run by someone who's under age 18 and sells non-alcoholic beverages. And the only rules the bill does impose on those stands is that if it's on private property, the child needs the owner's permission, and the stand can't operate for more than 2 days in a row and more than 8 days out of every 30. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Darian Benson, Drew Dodlin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Abriana Herron. Our news director is Sarah Neal Estes. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share. And follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.